What's going on, everybody? Cleopas Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some reasons why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Now, I'm going to say this right now, these are mostly pretty small things because, in general, this phone really doesn't have a ton of negatives. But of course, every phone that exists has some sort of drawbacks, so we're going to be going over some of those to give you a better idea of what you can expect from this phone if you get it. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So my first reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is because it doesn't have a headphone jack. Now if you're coming from a slightly higher end device like maybe an older flagship phone for example, then this might not bother you too much. And in addition to this, if you typically use wireless headphones anyway, again, it's probably not that big a deal, but there are still plenty of people out there who use wired headphones, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that. I mean, they do have their advantages, but unfortunately, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, as you can see, this phone does not have a headphone jack. So if you get this phone and you currently use wired headphones, then you're either going to have to switch to wireless headphones or get an adapter, which in my experience, adapters do typically work at least decently well, but it's not really that convenient. I mean, it's okay, but I imagine having an actual headphone jack is definitely preferable. Now, is it really a huge game-breaking deal? Even if you do use wired headphones, probably not. But at the same time, if you do get this phone expecting it to have a headphone jack, then you will be disappointed. My second reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is because it doesn't have wireless charging. Now, on one hand, is wireless charging really an end-all be-all feature that people are going way out of their way to get? No, definitely not. Lots of people are not going to care about it at all. But as of right now, I know this phone is relatively new, so stuff like carrier deals and inevitably prices getting lower in general are going to happen over time. But right now, this phone is around $449, and that's if you get it factory unlocked at full price. And for that price, you can easily get a phone like a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, for example, that does have wireless charging. So if you are in that situation where you want a little bit more of a premium experience, so you do want features like wireless charging, then if you are expecting that out of this phone, you will be a little disappointed. Now, to be fair, this phone does have a really good battery, with a 5000 mAh battery supporting 25 watt fast charging. So while it doesn't have wireless charging, if you plug this phone into a 25 watt fast charger, it is going to charge really fast, and in my experience, the charging speeds are really good, and the battery life is too. I mean, you can use this phone all day or even for multiple days, and the battery life is still going to be perfectly fine. So in general, I really don't have many complaints about the battery, but if you are expecting a nicer phone like this to have wireless charging, you still are going to be a little disappointed. My third reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is because compared to its predecessor, the display is actually a little bit smaller. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.4-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a really nice 1080p resolution, giving us a super sharp image, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. Now to be fair, at 6.4 inches versus 6.5 with the A53 5G, it's really not that much of a difference, but I know a lot of people out there are going to want the largest display they can get, and with phones like the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G for example, having really large 6.8-inch displays. Despite the display we get with this phone being actually pretty good for what it is, if having a larger display is important to you, then there definitely are some other options out there. But on the flip side, at this point in 2023, I want to say the average display is like 6.5 inches, so unless you want to get like a $50 entry-level phone, finding a more compact device is actually a little bit harder now. So although this phone isn't really what I would call compact, it's not like the Google Pixel 6a or a base level iPhone that's like 6.1 inches, it still is a little bit smaller, so if you want something that's easier to hold and carry around, then this could be a benefit. And again, in general, despite not being the largest display out there, the image quality really more than makes up for this. So I feel like for the average user, if you are consuming a lot of content, you still are going to get a pretty good experience here. But just know, again, if you do get this phone expecting a really large display, then especially for the price, you can do better. My fourth reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is because the USB-C port doesn't actually support HDMI out. Now, I will say this is a really situational thing, and for the average user, depending on what you're doing with your phone, you may or may not actually encounter a time where this is necessary. But keep in mind, if you ever want to plug your phone into a TV or something like that, then unfortunately, that's not going to be an option here. Now, luckily for normal home use, this phone does at least support screencasting. So if you're watching YouTube videos and you want to watch them on your TV, for example, I want to say for the average TV, it will work out just fine. But if you have maybe an older TV that doesn't support that kind of thing, or maybe you're in a hotel room, or maybe you want to connect this phone to a computer your monitor. In any of those situations, keep in mind with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, this phone does not support that feature. And then finally, my fifth reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is because it doesn't have a telephoto lens. Now with this phone, in general, the camera setup is actually really good. Up front, we got a nice looking 32 megapixel front facing camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So yeah, in general, the camera setup is really good for a mid-range phone, but compared to other phones around a similar price like the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, while originally going for around $600 or $700, that phone currently goes for around $300 if you get it on Amazon, and you can find some really good deals on it in general. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, retailing for again around $449, it's pretty much around the same price, and the S21 FE does have a telephoto lens, whereas again, this phone unfortunately doesn't, and while the digital zoom in my experience is actually pretty decent on this phone, it's still nowhere near as good as a telephoto lens. So if you're a little bit more into mobile photography and you really want to get some distance photos, like maybe you're taking pictures of birds or something, in that kind of situation, well again, this phone does have a really good camera for the most part. If you want the benefits of having a telephoto lens, you are going to want to get something a bit higher end. But those were my reasons why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Again, in general, most of these things are pretty situational, and for the average user, while they may be a little disappointing if you have higher expectations, I feel like nothing I mentioned is really going to affect most people's overall experience. So in general, if you're looking for a mid-range 5G phone that has great performance, a really nice display, a really powerful camera, and a more premium, higher-end feeling design overall, then I would say the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is definitely worth considering. Now once again, if you do want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.